Hey everyone, hope you're doing well. I'm Lucas and welcome back to another video, and today it's a pretty simple video, and yeah, we are just looking back at what I would say was the favourite race that I've taken part in Formula 4. This was last year at Croft, when I was racing in the Scottish Championship, but we were also racing on the national grid, so it was effectively, you know, the same difference, whatever way you wanted to look at it. And yeah, I think we started P9 this race? P9? I'm trying to count the cars I had, something like that. I think it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah, P9 or 10 or whatever it was, within the top 10. And yeah, we were racing, as I mentioned, in the Scottish Championship, but we were merged with the National Championship for this round at Croft and also the previous one at Loadcell. And yeah, this is probably the most fun that I've had in Formula 4 racing at Croft, because this was my second race weekend in Formula 4, and to this day, as of recording this on the in early March 2023, this is the last time I drove a Formula 4 car. I haven't had another race weekend since then, which sucks a bit, but you know, that's just the way it ended up last year. And yeah, it was. I've not actually spent much time. As the bollards decides to, pop into appearance, I've not actually spent, in many ways, much time behind the wheel. I did a test day, but you say a test day, it doesn't mean you have a day. You know, my first day in the Formula 4 car was maybe an hour and 20 minutes of running, which is a solid amount roughly, but it's not a lot when it's your first time in a race car on a track. Let's say, obviously I did the Race of Champions before. I did Rock in 2020, sorry, not Rock, Formula 4 in 2022, but those are very different environments in some ways, so it was, yeah, a lot to learn on that day, and this was at Loadcell earlier in the year. Then I had my first race weekend at Loadcell, which was a Saturday, Sunday, practicing the Saturday, then racing and qualifying and all that on the Sunday, and I had even less practice on that Saturday as well, so it wasn't, you don't get it sounds, if I was to say to you I've spent 6 days in a Formula 4 car, it's nowhere near like 6 days. It's not like it's a pre-season test in F1 where the track's open for like 8 hours, 9 hours. It's very limited running, so I've had not the most occasions in Formula 4, but it's something that, and the whole point of me explaining this is coming into this point now, where we are in this race, as we are following actually our teammate Mikey in this race, which was sort of the guy we were racing against. We were the part of the Scottish grid, so we were sort of racing against each other for our class lead in a way. So I guess that's context for this race in this video, as we'll sort of dive into a bit more, I guess, as the laps go on. But yeah, I think coming into Croft, I'd had the experience of Loadcell, so the test day and the first race weekend, and Croft was when I first finally had, it felt like you were able just to push more and more, getting more comfortable, as well. I think this is where I try and go, yeah, so feinting it a little bit to the inside, round to the outside, trying to go round the outside, which was very optimistic of me, because there's no way that's going to happen. Very unrealistic for me to expect to get round the outside of there, but it was worth a try, as yeah, this was, and this is the reason this was the most fun race I'd taken part in. It was a race-long scrap with our teammate ahead of us, Michael Gray, who was a good reference in many ways for us, because he'd taken part in Formula 4 before, and we were, it was good to sort of measure yourself up against someone as well, so it was a good way for us to develop and learn, and it was great this is why this race was my favourite, because we had a great scrap, as you're going to see. I do that all the time in this video, or even in this race weekend, is pinching that front left, it's into that friggin' hairpin. I always did that, but yeah, Croft was the sort of me getting up to my in Croft I certainly felt like I was getting up to speed much more. Loadcell was very scrappy, naturally, as it was sort of thrown in straight into the deep end, but Croft was when I felt like I had, let's say, pace, you know, if that makes sense. We were definitely still lacking in many areas, both, you know, on the driving and, well, I mean, maybe a little bit there as well, because we just get blasted past on the straight as well, which was, you know, really, really frustrating at the time and looking back at it, because we just didn't have any legs. Especially, it didn't feel like we had any legs at the top end. We couldn't really power past anybody. We had to really try and carry a lot of momentum to even remotely have a good run. But yeah, Croft was so much fun. I mean, moving on to Croft, what a phenomenal racetrack. I mean, getting to drive Croft in a Formula Ford is one of the greatest, I guess, privileges I've had in racing, because it's such a phenomenal layout. You know, getting to drive, you know, this type of car, you know, carrying the speed, especially in the high speed back end of the circuit, which you've just witnessed there. And there's a good mixture, and then you can see there, I think, as we miss a gear as well, not ideal. You know, looking back and watching this video effectively just under a year later as well, it's so, you know, hindsight's your best friend, right? It's because you can pick up and identify so many things that is like, okay, I know what I could have done here and could have done there. I was maybe making this mistake here and there, but you know, it's practically impossible to do a lot of these things without hindsight and without reviewing onboard footage and all sorts of things. But I think one thing as well, I mean, when you watch these videos back, I was finding, you know, we were quite front limited, very surprisingly, in many ways mid-corner, which is not something that, let's say, I would have expected coming into Formula Ford. I don't think that's necessarily a Formula Ford trait, if that makes sense. I just think with, yeah, our car balance is very understeering. We could attack quite aggressive into these sort of places here. I mean, we overshoot it there as we had to sunny in and then through sunny out, which is one of my favourite complex, well, probably it was my favourite complex as you headed through, I believe it was, I might be wrong with the corner, I think it was Croft before sunny in, sunny out. But, you know, you're flat out, you're doing about 115 miles per hour, give or take, I think, if I remember correctly from looking at the GPS. And yeah, I'd say the slow speed into that sort of section there was when I was at my weakest, and that's something that I was learning as I was going on, is what I found watching the footage back, even after Croft and even now, as you can see, I'm trying to cross load the front axle. I'm trying to turn and brake far too much. You know, I was exceeding, I was very front limited. I couldn't pivot the car on the front axle the way I was trying to do. We had to be much more sort of straight line braking in a manner, or like brake with, you know, the momentum straight, and then, you know, peel off the brake and, you know, shift that weight onto the rear. Which we do quite a bit through Tower Bend right there. We can brake hard and deep, and then you sort of, with the way the Formula Ford is, you can, the minute you jump off the throttle, you can get a lot of rotation with the diff, so you, or at least, or maybe whether it's the diff or whether it's not, I'm not going to try and pretend I'm a technical genius, but when you jump off the power, you, with Formula Ford being open diff, you can, yeah, generate a lot of rotation off power, and then on power you can also generate quite a bit of understeer as well, so, you know, combining all of these different factors together, you know, and then applying them at once is what can, as we get a lovely bit of oversteer through there. We had a good attack into there, and then you can see now into here, you can see I started to figure it out. As the first few laps into that final corner, I was really not hooking it up the way that you would have liked, but you can see they are braking much straighter, you know, slowing the car down, getting into first gear as well. And that was actually our fastest lap of the race there, I believe, as well. And you can see most of the time was literally in that one corner, in the last corner. It's amazing the chunks of lap time that, if you just hook up every little bit of the lap, how much quicker it can actually be. You know, you can be really aggressive and really nail, you know, all corners bar one, but you'll lose everything. It's not like, you know, it's not so much a perfectionist detail compared to, let's say, sim racing, where we need to be perfect in every capacity. and that's something I really enjoy about the real life racing, which, you know, obviously I started in go-karting. For those of you who don't know, I did go-karting when I was younger, from 2010 to 2015, at a club sort of national level, but I couldn't continue that due to financial reasons, as is so often the case, as we're really following close now to Mike at the back of coming into sunny in, sunny out, and this race is so good, man. We just got to a total hustle the whole way through. I loved it. I'm even enjoying watching it back. It's just so much fun just to watch. Just, you know, watching the lines, watching the defensives. You know, you can see Mikey taking a wider trajectory on the way in. Yeah, and you can see there, just even mid-corner, winding on the front lock, we just started to bite with more understeer, even jumping off the power. The second you get on that power, you just start to generate that understeer. We weren't able to pivot the car on the front axle, maybe as much as I would have maybe liked. I mean, I think if as we actually missed a gear, but we get it back in there, that's brilliant. Yeah, we missed second gear, up to third, going through the chicane. And then you've got this lovely back straight section, overtaking opportunity into tower bend down here as well. I'll actually walk us through a lap next round, I think, as well. And obviously with Formula Ford as well, as you can see, it's also a sequential. Oh my god, no. You know what I meant? Not a sequential, an H-box pattern. I looked at the shifter and my brain went haywire. Yeah, it's a classic 4-speed H-box pattern. And you have clutch as well, so this is old school heel and toe as we break really well into there. We were really strong at this section of the track, I think, in general, in terms of commitment, which is, you know, what the one thing that I'll always, as long as I've got commitment and I'm trying to not, you know, underdrive. I'd rather, you know, be a bit too committed than, you know, not committed enough in a way. There were certainly bits of this track I think I could have definitely been more committed, but at least into that fast section I was being certainly quite committed into the braking and carrying the speed in. And yeah, now starting a lap of Croft, honestly, what a beautiful racetrack. I hope I get to race it again one day. Heading into the braking zone, you've got these bollards on the left hand side, so you've sort of used them as a reference. As we actually take the lead here, we go up the inside using a back marker to complete perfection, and we do actually get ahead. And at this point you think, oh well, you know, you should have the position, but if you look in your mirrors here and you just watch, you know, the straight line speed, there ain't no way in hell I'm holding this position. We just do not have the top end, as I absolutely screech that front left, trying to pull it back to the left, because I did not want to dive up the inside, as I didn't want to, yeah, I didn't know how much space was going to be left. I didn't know if Mikey wanted to pull across all the way to the inside, and the last thing I wanted to do was have an accident, so or put ourselves in a sort of tricky position, because we're also teammates, remember, so I did not want to yeah, that was not a situation I wanted to be in. But naturally that was, you know, it was good racing, but on my perspective unbelievably aggravating, as I could not believe I'd lost the position, because we just got outdragged. We just didn't have the top speed, and that's something you'll see, you know, quite a bit through this race, is even though we can get better exits out of certain corners, we still lose time on the straight, even in a toe. Maybe not by the end of the straight as the toe finally kicks in to equalise it, but we should really be gaining in that situation. So it was really tricky to make a move or to challenge all the time, because we had to carry so much momentum, and I didn't get the chance to really talk through the lap, so I'll do it this time. So heading into turn 1, you've got the 3 bollards on the left, you're braking sort of just around that third one if you can, down to second using the road on the entry, and then you want to just, yeah, you're dropping it third into turn 1, second into T2, and then you're, you know, flat through the chicane, just cutting over the curbs, making it a little bit straighter up to 4th gear, and then the circuit kinks to the left hand side. You have the marker boards on the left hand side, you're braking, but yeah, I mean, depending if it's qualifying, you're braking a bit before 100. Circuit rises up a little bit as well, so it's actually a little bit easy, believe it or not, to lock up the front a little bit, especially if you're on cold tires and brakes. And then you start, you know, you're not slowing down, you start panicking a little bit. Then this is my favourite part, flying through this, you know, high speed. But we weren't flying on this lap because we were having to lift off a little bit earlier as we were following through that section. But that section in qualifying is phenomenal fun. As you can see, Mikey actually quite loose on the rear, and that's one thing I found from comparing myself to Mike is his car was a bit more loose than mine. Mine was a bit more stable, a bit more, and this wasn't necessarily through specific request either. This was just sort of the way it was. Just the cars in general. I had a lot more sort of stability on the sort of entry phase of the corner, but it was much more understeer limited through the mid and exit phase, whereas Mikey's car was much more wanted to pivot a lot more on the front. The car was a lot more lively on the rear, particularly on sort of entry mid corner, whereas mine was sort of the opposite way around. So that's where you can see the sort of different strengths. As Mikey was, I think, quite strong at the slow speed stuff, as he was able to pivot the car really nicely. But through the sort of high speed stuff as we go through Tower Bend, we're using the track width well there. Not so much, not too bad with understeer through that one, with the way you can work it off throttle, on throttle. But then, you know, coming into this high speed section here, you're going through Barkov, you're flat out, and then you're late on the brakes, and you can just see the difference in speed that we're able to carry. Just so much more, you know, confident on the entry of the corner, just because we have that faith in the rear of the car. And then Mikey defending to the inside, which makes it pretty hard for you to do anything about it. He goes wide now to, you know, cover any attack on the inside of the corner, and this is actually the last lap as well. And then it's pretty hard to do anything about it. You know, Mikey's defending the inside. Great racing though. This is why this is my favourite race in Formula 4. We didn't necessarily take the Scottish win, if you like, or if you want to call it that. Well, that's what it is, technically, yeah. But this was the most fun I've had to date in Formula 4. Some of the most fun I've had on a racetrack, because, you know, Croft is a phenomenal circuit. Getting to drive a Formula 4 round there is it's just magic, man. I can't really explain it any other way. It is just genuinely beautiful to do, and genuinely beautiful to have experienced. Something I'm very grateful that I've had the chance to do. And yeah, I very much hope that if I'm lucky enough to, I would be so grateful if I had another opportunity to drive in Formula 4 in the future. As, albeit I never got to do, let's say, a lot of it last year, it was some of the most fun I've had in racing in general. And I really hope you've enjoyed this video. Something bit different. And yeah, I just wanted to, you know, watch back this race, give a bit of commentary to it as well. And yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know if you're interested in any more of this sort of style of content. I would be interested to hear your guys' feedback. I'm completely, you know, open to hearing suggestions as well. But yeah, thank you very much everyone for tuning in. Hope you've had an amazing day, and yeah, thanks for tuning in. I love you all. Have a great rest of your day. See you guys later. Ciao ciao.